Are you depressed? Are you lonely? Are you a zombie? Then come to our Depressed Lonely Zombie support group and be with your own kind. Why be alone when you can share with friends? The group meets at 1 a.m. right around last call. After the group, around 2 a.m., bars let out, and that's the perfect time to go feeding for fresh brains. Together. Why eat alone? Pick each other's brains with common problems among zombies and find the answers you seek at the Depressed Lonely Zombie support group.
Welcome to Salty Horror Podcast, Episode 4. That's Episode 4, or Quattro, if you want to be bilingual. All right, my name is Mario DeAngelis, and I am here with my co-host,
Brandon Hobbs.
And our special guest, very, very, very special guest.
I wrote the square bus. My name is Tom Post.
Did you say something about your scrotum?
He said you were special.
Oh,
Square bus, special.
You are definitely on a different bus there, my friend. Yes, that is Tom Post and Danny James. We are very happy to have them on the podcast tonight. So we are recording live from Broovies. We love Broovies. And this is yet another edition of Salty Horror Podcast and Salty Horror Nights. Would anyone like to take a stab at educating the public on what exactly is Salty Horror Night at Broovies? Anyone? Bueller?
Everyone's looking at me, so yeah, sure, I'll take a stab at it. Salty Horror Nights at Broovies Cinema Pub is a great thing going on. I believe first you show a couple of local short films, which are very entertaining, and then a throwback horror movie. And tonight it is a double feature of My Bloody Valentine, the original and the 3D remake. So always check back because they're always great, and they're always, not always throwback movies. Sometimes you do some locals or some indie movies as well.
That is correct. We do independent films. We do Utah horror films, and we've got a really great thing going on here where we kind of try and mix it up. So March is going to be a big surprise. We don't know what we're showing.
I don't even know.
So tonight, when we go into the audience of whoever shows up for My Bloody Valentine double feature, we are going to be asking the people, the man. We're going to be going to the man and saying, what do you want?
You're not going to give him a choice?
Yes.
Okay.
The choices are
Anything but Twilight.
anything but Twilight. The choices are Leprechaun or Leprechaun 4 in space.
Those are their
Okay?
only options?
Yes. And fuck Leprechaun to the Hood, because that's a brand new, that is like not count in the original franchise. It's a new franchise. Leprechaun to the Hood and Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
Are you making
Now,
this up?
the Hood.
You're making this
No, this
No,
is
no,
actually
this is an
real.
actual movie, yeah.
It's Leprechaun to the Leprechaun in the Hood, and then Leprechaun Back to the Hood. Get it? To the Hood.
No.
Okay.
They're
So
separate?
yeah. So anyway, they like did a spin-off franchise. Who the fuck does that except Twilight? Okay, moving on. So my name is Mario DeAngelis, and we are with the lovely and vivacious Brandon Hobbs. Thank you all so much for the likes on Facebook. This has really been going well, the Facebook thing and the likes, and thank you very much. And within one day, it was almost 100 for the Salty Horror Podcast likes. So we're very excited about that. It makes me very happy. And Brandon's other podcast has been very well received. We want to thank Outer Darkness Podcast, a steady diet of music podcast, and twitchfilms.com for the support since we have been doing these podcasts. So we're very excited and very thankful. God bless everyone.
All right, so the people who are listening, let's turn that 100 into 1,000
Yeah.
by
100 is
April.
really small.
All right,
100
so
is-
Because at
whole
1,000,
100.
because at 1,000 something happens. We don't know
sounds
what
good.
yet.
That's
yeah.
when you start getting
Sounds a
sponsors, I think.
yeah, you start getting like 1,001.
Yeah, that's
That's just a
That's
fun
next.
number
He's-
because you have
he's
a
not
1,
lying.
double zero,
There
and a
you
1.
go. There you go. So first up,
Like
we
a
have
pair
a
of glasses.
First up in our podcast, we always do horror news and reviews. All right, so the first topic we wanted to bring up, Brandon,
Yes.
was lots going on in horror news. The first up, the most exciting, Evil Dead got the dreaded NC-17. upon its first review by the MPAA. It's true. Danny James doesn't believe it, everybody.
Wait, the NBAA?
Oh, I believe it.
MPAA.
Watching the Red Band trailer, I believe it.
Yeah, the trailer is extremely graphic, and the MPAA didn't like the movie.
The original Evil Dead?
No. This
No, the
Evil
remake.
Dead remake was given to the
His head
MPAA,
on that.
and it said, okay, rate us. So the MPAA for the Evil Dead remake, produced by Bruce Campbell and
Sam Raimi.
I got an NC-17. So they had to go back to the cutting room. Yes, my friends, it won't be released as NC-17 because everybody knows NC-17 is death to a movie.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I mean,
Only with gore?
You know what? That's a good question. Tom Post asked a very good question. No, it's usually like sex scenes.
Right.
And it's like it has nothing to do with horror usually.
well,
Evil Dead sex.
you know what it
scene.
probably is, man. It's probably the tree rape scene that they.
yeah.
I bet it was that. I bet that was too graphic.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a
It's
tree
gonna be
rape
like
scene.
if it got an NC-17 rating, of course it would be death to the movie. Be bad for them. Good for us because we get to see it in all of its gory glory. But I'm fine with them going back to the cutting room and bringing it down to an R rating because you know that when the DVD comes out, it's going to be the uncut director's cut.
Exactly.
And that's fun. Then you could see it in the movie theater
Yep.
and
then
appreciate that, and then get it on DVD and watch some added stuff.
It's gonna be. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. It's immediate marketing for their director's cut, whatever they're gonna call
Right,
it.
yeah.
So that's absolutely right. Danny James, did you have something to say?
It's gone. It's lost forever.
Well, oh my God, I don't know if you are treating your mic very friendly.
Oh.
Do you see what I'm doing with my mic, Danny
Hey,
James?
Mike, how are
It's
you?
right near my mouth.
you feel
That's
better
what
now?
she said.
You like
So
it?
anyway, moving on, there is a lot going on right now in horror, as I said, and the horror movie, which for some reason January became a big horror movie month. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? A lot of horror movies in January this year, in 2013.
Yeah, there has been.
We
yeah.
started the year out with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. Did anyone see this?
I didn't see it. I wanted to.
I actually didn't see it.
Now, what is it? Is it part 3? Is it a prequel?
I don't
mean, 'cause
know,
they already
man.
Did a prequel and
It's a remake, but it's not. But it's in 3D, and then they changed the plot, but it's not because it's
revisioning, maybe.
You know,
Yeah.
They just need to go completely off.
I think we're done with
They're-
Texas Chainsaw
Well,
Massacre.
they're trying to stay somewhat true to the story, the true story. Yet they've been off on every single movie, even the original.
Dude, it
And they
needs.
just need to go completely off.
Thank you.
Off the true story, if they're going to keep doing those movies.
That's
And
yeah.
they're turning into as bad as the Saw movies.
Exactly. And then let's not forget what they did to the Amityville horror true story, okay? So, I mean, they drove that into the ground, and that was barely based on the true story. And then they went ahead and they didn't even shoot it in the right town. Oops.
Oops.
Well,
Okay.
And then the Haunting of Connecticut, Georgia.
Yeah,
Let's go back to
it
that.
was like in Wichita, but then they moved it into Jersey.
Wouldn't
I don't
the
know.
true story of Texas Chainsaw Massacre just be the Ed Gein story? Because wasn't Leatherface
That's exactly
based on
right.
Ed Gein?
Yeah.
Brandon Hobbs is correct. All right, moving on to I Saw Warm Bodies.
I'm
Did
sorry.
anyone?
My condolences.
No, don't be an asshole.
Oh, I didn't know what the response
He can
was.
be whatever he
You
wants.
said it so sadly.
You did.
No, I Saw Warm Bodies. It was an excellent film.
Say
I saw it
happy.
too, Mario.
Oh, well, thank
yeah,
you, Brandon.
After you sent me this, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go check it out, and I checked it out.
Good for
And,
you.
Did you notice the huge nod to Romeo and Juliet?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, there was
Now, this
actually
is-
a scene straight out of Romeo and Juliet, the
Yep.
whole balcony scene.
Yep, they have really played up on this, and I
And
wrote
his
an
name
art-
is R, and
Yes.
her name is Jules.
Yes. I wrote about this as an article. I'm now a movie critic for Blood Magazine. Everyone can be happy about that.
Nice.
And maybe clap
Hell yeah.
if you want.
Oh,
Clap, Tom Post. God damn it. Thank you for clapping. I appreciate that. So Blood Magazine now gets it. Oh, now there's more clapping. Okay.
We got
okay.
clapping from
Yeah, we
the
can't
whole
hear
place now.
you, James Christian Morris.
Can
clapping,
we stop
you mother.
clapping now?
Yes, you can stop clapping. James Christian Morris is back in the background.
I find
He's in
clapping to
depth
be
of
quite
field.
rude.
He's blurry, everybody, that you can't see on Radio Land. So Warm Bodies did a review for Blood Magazine, and I touched on this Romeo and Juliet thing. Even though I think you're right, Brandon Hobbs, and I keep saying your last name.
I
too.
like it, man. Yeah.
So
It's
Brandon,
like the scene from Coffee and Cigarettes where RZA and Jizza keep calling Bill Murray, Bill Murray.
Now, let me
That's
ask you this
great.
question. If you saw Bill Murray in person, would you not call him Bill Murray?
I would. I couldn't call him Bill.
Right?
I'd probably just call him William.
fuck you
I would
both.
call
I would call him
Hey,
Mr.
William.
Murray.
William, how you doing?
Fuck you guys. I'm
Yeah,
showing
actually,
some
Mr.
goddamn
Murray would be more
respect.
I think
respectful.
even Woody
Yeah.
Harrelson
William.
called him Bill Murray.
Is that right?
Well, in Zombieland.
Oh, yeah.
That was in the script, Danny James.
I doubt it.
Okay, so this is the night where we use
It's
first
all Woody
and last
Harrelson.
names. All right, moving on. Warm Bodies, excellent film if you haven't seen it.
I liked it. It
Moving
had
on
really
to-
good music in it, too.
Yeah, did you like the film?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I
How
had no
many
problem.
bucket-
I had one problem with it. I didn't like the bonies. I didn't like how they looked. I don't like super CGI stuff. And it didn't make any sense that they were more powerful and faster than the rest of the zombies, yet they were just bones. They had no muscle mass at all.
Well, I don't think you're
And-
thinking fourth dimensionally, Brandon Hobbs,
sorry.
because
Oh,
they
shit.
didn't have skin. So of course they'd be faster. I have no idea what I'm
I don't
saying.
know.
They're
If you
called
go
stuff now.
analyzing
So,
horror
I'm gonna
movies
stop
and you
right
break
now.
them down and
They're called bonies.
I'm with Brandon Hobbs
Yeah.
on this one.
Okay, here's the argument to any criticism of any movie that is about zombies. Here's the criticism. It's about zombies. Shut the fuck up.
well, I think to criticize any movie, you think too deeply about any movie, you simply could say it's a movie.
You could, but
I did the
when
same thing with
zombies-
Armageddon. Okay,
I want to hear what Tom
has.
has to say
You
about
wanna hear
zombies.
what Tom has to say about zombies?
I would love to hear what Tom has to say about
Zombies
zombies.
are the dry hump of the fictional world. Zombies are the I don't have any really good ideas, and so I need an antagonist. Zombies! That's
Yeah.
it. Zombies. That's what I'm going to do. Zombies. That's it.
Well, Warm
The
Bodies.
thoughtless-
Yeah, to give Warren Bodies credit,
Hold
they
on,
did do
though.
something completely original with it that I've never seen, and the whole inner dialogue of the zombie.
Thank you.
Is they had
Yeah.
zombies that were called bonies.
Well,
I have a bony,
but this is
it's
the
not a
thing,
zombie.
that,
is that
that
the
bony
zombies
name
ended
going.
up becoming the middleman. They became the heroes, kind of, and then they had the antagonist, which was the bonies.
Dry hump of the fictional world.
All right, fuck off.
Zombies.
We're moving on to another movie recently that came out, and I didn't like it. I thought it was really stinky. It's called Mama. Okay, Mama.
Produced
And I was
by,
produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, actually, executive producer.
Guillermo
He just
del
threw
Toro.
some money at it. He
Producer,
didn't
he
really.
didn't direct it.
He didn't
the
have
guy that
anything
did
to do with
Pan's
it, really.
Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
the guy who did.
Oh, okay.
And he's a great
and
filmmaker,
Hellboy
and I
1 and 2.
really like
Brilliant
his
show.
stuff. Would you guys like to hear my review,
Let's
or
hear it.
just
No.
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
over me?
No.
I love
Yeah,
you
but that-
guys. So anyway, I think it was. I had high expectations, and then I watched it, and I had low expectations. But then I watched the short film that it's based off of, and I had high expectations again. And then I just watched porn.
Oh,
So
yeah.
did you have high expectations before or during or while you were
What happened-
watching it? I'm confused.
Porn?
Yeah.
No, the short film.
The short film.
All right.
And what
So I
happened to
had
your
high
expectations
covered
when you
the
were watching
bony
porn?
already.
So I had high expectations before I watched the Mama feature. Then I had low expectations because you can't really have expectations after you watch something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Then
I think
I-
that's what they're getting
you,
at.
You weren't very clear on that.
Right.
All right,
Punched
moving on. So I saw Hansel and Gretel.
I didn't see it.
Oh my God. Mama was better than that, at least.
What'd you see?
Hansel and
That's
Gretel Witch
unfortunate.
Hunters?
Oh, dude,
Really bad.
I can't even get through the preview.
Thank
of
you.
that.
There's somebody in
Yeah,
the background who's like shaking his head at me, ladies and gentlemen. And
Yeah, I have to turn
it
the
was
channel
really
when I see a
bad.
preview
It's another
for it,
Van
yeah.
Helsing.
Yeah, actually, it's worse than Van Helsing,
Oh,
That's
no.
bad.
which is really hard to do. All right, so we are now
Van
going to
Helsing
move on
would've been
to.
alright for it.
This is a very serious
Disney
topic.
film.
Okay.
I want to bring light to the fact that the man sitting across from me, Brandon Hobbs, is about to embark this weekend on his not very first short film, but we want to talk about The Ride Home.
Yeah, let's talk
Congratulations.
about it.
Brandon's short film that I am honored to be director of photography of, and Danny James, who is sitting with us, is in the short film. So, Brandon, what would you like to talk about with in regards to your short film?
Well, I'm super excited. I'm glad to have both of you on board. And, yeah, I mean, what do you want me to talk about it? I don't want to give too much away because it has a twist ending.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. Is that when I was thinking about it, it was like, wow, what are we going to talk about? Because we can't talk about it too much.
It's okay. It breaks down to someone getting a ride home from the wrong person, and it's very loosely based on a true story of me getting a ride home and thinking that I got a ride home with the wrong person, but it ended up just being marijuana paranoia. And going home that night and being like, oh, man, I could probably do something with this. So I started writing. Yeah.
I believe, and I saw this a lot at Slam Dance, listening to a lot of Q&As, a lot of the filmmakers' narrative or documentary, they really took a lot from their regular, like, normal life. It's they would go into something. Like, I saw a documentary at Slam Dance. It wasn't horror, but it was a documentary. This guy goes into a deli in New York, and he saw a documentary. So, I mean, I think a lot of – it's a good point that you brought up, Brandon. A lot of what we make films about does come from ourselves.
Of course it does. Where else would it come from?
Not ourselves.
Well, our own personal experiences.
Well, and I've written a zombie thing, but I wasn't, I've never experienced fighting a fucking zombie.
Yeah, but you look like a zombie, so you
Okay,
can draw.
that's just not.
yeah,
That's just
so-
Sure
rude.
about that.
That's just not nice. Why are you here, Tom Post?
To pick on you, apparently.
Fuck. We're about to get to why Tom Post is here, but we do want to do something here. Tom Post doesn't know this. We're about to surprise Tom Post. All right.
Surprise.
So now everybody in Radio Land listening to this podcast are going to be witness to something that we hadn't done yet. So now we're about to ask you, Tom Post, if you would be in Brandon's short film. Yes or no?
When are we filming?
It would be Sunday,
Yes.
7 in the morning,
Yes.
here at Broovies.
Yes.
Okay, he
Tom,
has said
you're
yes,
filming with
ladies and
me.
gentlemen. So if he does not come through, but God bless you, Tom Post, for not saying I don't work on Sundays, which happens in Utah.
Yeah.
I don't do nude scenes on Sundays.
Yeah.
You don't
Oh.
do nude scenes on Sundays.
Just
And we have to
Sundays.
uninvite
Well, that's okay.
you.
I don't direct animals.
I only
on
do the
Sundays.
nudes on
I'd never touch
Wednesdays.
animals in my nude scenes.
Before we get into animals, that's what she said.
That's
We're
still
going to move
legal in
on to the
Utah.
next topic of one of the reasons why Tom Post is here. So speaking of films and being on a set, and Danny James and Tom Post, we were on a set last weekend, and we were making a short film directed by Danny's brother. And on that set, we talked about something that just came up. It was Stephen King related, and Tom wanted to bring that up. So what did you want to talk about
It's
today?
not just Stephen King. It's more of the responsibility of the artist on how they affect the audience. And I think especially today, with the proliferation of zombie films and the violence
Right.
and everything, the creatives, meaning the artists, the filmmakers, the songwriters, they need to be very aware of the effect they're having on people. Stephen King recently wrote an essay on a book he wrote. It's a novella called Rage. He wrote it in the late 70s under his pseudonym, Richard Bachman. And it is about a kid that gets very upset at his school. He takes a handgun to school. He kills several of his teachers and several of the students. Stephen King found out that that book had been mentioned by 3 suspects of mass shootings. And so, as an artist, his response was, I thought, rather atypical of artists.
Right.
He pulled the book. He no longer allows it to be sold on Kindle. He's pulled the printed copies because he said he felt a slight responsibility, not for causing those, but for accelerating behavior that is not well. I think that people that make films really need to be aware of the effect they have on the film going public. Not just films, but music, stories, books, whatever.
Those are really good points. And when that was originally brought to me, I thought that was an amazing thing to bring up because in Salty Horror Podcast episode 3, we touched on this. So that's why I thought it was amazing that, you can never not talk about this topic enough. Does violence in movies proliferate violence in real life? Brandon Hobbs, what do you think?
Well, like I said, I think it's more of a mental health issue and not what's put out there. Because I grew up on violent films my whole life, and I've never killed anybody my whole life. All it made me do is want to make violent films. I'm a fucking vegetarian because I don't like the fact that how the cows are slaughtered. So I mean, I think it's all about how people take it, and maybe even parenting will come into play to where if their kids are watching this, for them to explain that this is not reality, and this is bad, and this is entertainment, and this is, a movie or a book or music.
I think maybe that the mental health issue is a huge part of it, probably the large majority of it. But those kids that grow up unattended watching those films or doing those things, and they never have that outside influence of someone coming in and saying, hey, this is not real. When people get shot, they don't get up. When people die, they don't get a reset button. And it develops into a mental illness. I think it starts with this lack of parenting, this lack of I'm not even going to say adult supervision, because I know a lot of adults that fall into the same category of not being able to distinguish reality from fantasy. So maybe a responsible intervention where someone says, this is not real, this is entertainment, this is not a desirable behavior, this is wrong.
Yeah, because when
Does that make sense?
It does definitely make sense. Because when I grew up watching these violent horror movies, my dad was sitting right there next to me, saying, because he was all into special effects makeup, and he's like, "Oh, look at the special effects makeup, and look at this, and he was looking at it as an art. So I grew up looking at it as an art, and not real life. So naturally, I just wanted to create this art.
Do you remember though the first film that you saw? And I think all of us have this, where we see a film that we recognize as fantasy, and it's that. Like for me, it was Taps. Do you remember that with Tom Cruise?
Oh yeah.
Taps.
Yeah,
Taps.
And
one of his first.
Absolutely, I remember
it's
that.
It's a wonderful show. It's probably Tom Cruise's only acting ever. But did I say that? Okay,
Dude,
sorry.
you cannot. I'm sorry. Absolutely off topic. You cannot say that, because he was in Tropic Thunder as one of the most amazing and probably realistic producers ever.
Okay, so from Taps
I'm sorry.
to Tropic
I have my own
Thunder, he
opinion
did
on
no
that.
acting at all.
We'll get to you, Kenny James.
He kind of just plays the same character.
Kenny
throughout,
James,
yeah.
you'll get your chance. God damn it.
so
go ahead.
For me, it
Tom
was
Post.
Taps, and at the end when he dies and his friend is carrying him out, I was watching it with my dad, and I was crying. I think I was 8, and my dad said, "It's not real." Mm-hmm. And for me, that was my first experience of realizing that what I saw on television really wasn't reality.
Yeah.
It wasn't what actually happened. And so I was able to disassociate myself from the apparent realities of film. Mm-hmm. Some kids never get that.
Right.
They grow up, you hear the reports of the kids going all Power Ranger nuts on their classmates at school. Mm-hmm. And it's because they don't have that responsible intervention where someone says, hey, this isn't real.
Yeah,
this is not how real life is.
Right.
Kenny James?
Even autistic children can understand the difference between real life and fantasy if
it's explained to them
and explained to them in the way they understand it.
Exactly.
And so there is a huge lack of parenting in this country.
Exactly.
And parenting education. I mean, our education, not just in the public school systems, but at home, has declined dramatically over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And you go back and it just keeps declining. The more
and it's not going to get any better.
Future. No, it's getting worse as we go forward.
So does there become a point where the creatives in the world have to step in and say, this isn't real? This isn't, is that a responsibility? I admire Stephen King, but I don't necessarily agree with what he did. I don't agree that pulling the book is going to solve problems.
Right.
I think it's just his personal stand.
I don't think he did it to solve problems, because he's smart enough to know that that's not going to change anything.
So is he just making a statement?
I think he was
like an apology.
Somebody just
almost?
said it.
I think you're right.
It was a personal responsibility thing,
and he felt that.
Yeah, right. I think more. I don't even know about apology per se, but I need to do something.
Well, I've only read 2 books of Stephen King's. However,
incidentally, which ones?
Almost all of his films that have been made.
Which ones?
Now you bring me on the spot.
Sorry.
The Gunslinger and
the first of the Dark Tower trilogy, or
the first of the,
whatever.
And that's
however,
more fantasy.
9 of them.
That's not his.
And that's more
fantasy.
And that's not his horror stuff.
And Christine,
which is the car that,
which is also fantasy,
and the crazy old man.
But it was made into a horror film.
A horror film, and I
because
actually
for
saw a film
marketability.
before,
They made it more of a horror thing.
Exactly, and I
Yeah.
saw the film before I read the book, years and years before I read the book. But I think Stephen King did it. One, he felt the responsibility. Two, he did it because he's smart. He is a smart man. He's a very smart man, and he knows that doing something like that is going to gain him positive influence in the community and from his readers and from future readers, et cetera, et cetera.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I don't think it was all him going, well, I
He
feel
wasn't completely
responsibility.
being altruistic about it.
Right. I mean, he's
Probably
a smart
not.
businessman. And the way our country and our society is they just throw blame wherever they can throw it. And he's going, hey, I'll take the blame for where I have it, and it's a minute place. Really, it's in your own damn homes.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
So, are we talking about disclaimers before
don't know.
movies and books? I mean,
I don't know.
Would that
It
help?
should-
Maybe.
I mean,
But I
it-
mean, those things are in place, and those don't stop anything. How many, they started the video game rating system a long time ago.
That just makes it more desirable to kids.
Stop.
Yeah,
exactly.
That don't stop 10-year-olds playing Grand Theft Auto, running over grandma.
You guys
know?
made
So
the
it's-
point perfectly when you were talking about Evil Dead getting an NC-17.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, great. It's bad for the ratings. It's not going to go great. But it's going to sell 1 billion copies of the
Yep.
director's cut
Yeah.
because it's NC-17.
Exactly.
You don't think that was deliberate on the director's part? You don't think they knew going into it?
I read an article.
bet,
I
yeah.
read an article. The director of Evil Dead, the name does escape me. He is an indie director who they gave a shot to. So Sam Raimi didn't direct the Evil Dead remake. They gave a shot to an indie director. I believe it's the director of Chronicle, but I could be wrong. I could be
okay.
wrong. But anyway, this guy, the director of Evil Dead remake, was almost proud of the fact they got an NC-17.
Exactly.
They were like, fuck yeah, we got an NC-17, okay? So, I mean, they were maybe going for that because they knew it would be press. They knew they would make some noise. And that's the movie they wanted to tell.
Yeah, that's $1 million worth of free advertising right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to the R-rated thing. You can only go so far in the theater. But on DVD and Blu-ray, it's gonna sell like fucking hotcakes.
Yes, it is.
Right.
It's gonna sell
And I
better,
think
yeah.
the producers, the writer, the director, and even some of the stars in there that have a lot of influence in that film had something to do with that, which smart business people
It could suck.
and dumb
it's
society.
It doesn't
still gonna sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Natural
That
Born
fucking
Killers.
movie is still gonna sell like hotcakes. But I think it's gonna actually be possibly a scary movie. And they swear they did no CG. Okay,
Huh. It's all
Sam
practical
Raimi
makeup, huh?
and Sam Raimi specifically has stated that they did all practical effects in the Evil Dead remake.
That
That's
excites
what
me
he
a lot.
said. So I'm hoping that's true, especially
that
with the
sounds
tree
pretty
rape
cool.
scene.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right.
Yeah, the tree. How could that be?
The tree.
The tree
The
rape
tree
scene
rape,
was,
that's just-
it was CGI,
Even I
no
say
doubt.
it, and I can see my mother staring at me.
Did you say tree rape? I have
Tree
one word.
rape.
Splinters. Splinters.
gotta
Say
hurt.
that 10 times fast. Tree rape.
Splinters.
Only on a podcast can you
Splinters.
keep saying tree rape
Yeah.
and
Splinters.
get away with it. I was told a story last night, real quick. A friend of ours, mutual friend of me and Tom Post, told me about. He kept saying he was on a radio show and he kept saying the N word, which I won't say, but he kept saying the N word for like 15 minutes on a live radio broadcasted show in Telluride.
Why was he saying the word?
He kept saying the N word because
okay.
somebody
I
said
feel
the
better
N
about
word,
this conversation
and
now.
then as a gag for 15 minutes they said, well, you can't keep saying the N word. The N word is bad, but they kept saying the N word. It was a joke.
And he's got a James Earl Jones voice.
Yes, he really does.
He does.
All right.
Oh wait, he was an African American himself.
No, but he has that kind of voice.
He has the voice. If you just talk to him on the phone
Yeah.
and didn't actually see that he's whiter than me,
Exactly.
you would think he was
It was
a
it
black
the
guy.
He's like Casper.
ER N word or the
No,
with the A.
It was said in over 700 times in Django.
723 times.
723 times in Django, the N word.
I still need to see that film.
So it's a
a good
great film. But back
playing here
to
at Brewery
horror.
Cinema Pub.
Actually, back to Danny James. We are now moving on to, we segue into the Danny James
Portion of the show.
portion of the show.
He has fans here, ladies and gentlemen.
That's not true. It's like my roommates and my former roommate.
You paid them with beer.
So the Danny James fans are in the house. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk to Danny James for a few minutes, and we're gonna take a short break.
Before or after you talk to me for a few minutes?
We're gonna talk to you for a few minutes, and then we're gonna take a short break.
And
I'm gonna play some Playboy pinball. Can you even believe that there is a Playboy pinball machine?
Of course,
it
I
looks
can
like a
believe
lot
it.
of fun.
I have one in my basement.
Anyway, moving
The best
on.
one is
I like Playboy and I like.
you open up a can of worms on this. No. The best one is at the Pie Hole, man. It's got the Elvira pinball machine.
What?
That one's awesome.
That's
yeah.
Are you
related.
where
Yeah.
the pie? I've got to go to
Pie
the
Hole.
pie hole.
Downtown, yeah, it's
Pinball
great.
machine.
It is called the pie hole.
Yeah.
I actually
officially.
think
Here,
there's
talk
an
among
I had this
yourselves. I'll show you a
conversation
picture.
about a
I
week
think there's
ago.
an Evil Dead.
I actually
pinball
had a
machine.
conversation a week ago, and here's some free advertising for the pie hole. Is we were discussing trying to figure out if it was just called the pie or if it was called the pie hole. We couldn't figure it out, and I was like, why would somebody name a restaurant the pie hole?
Because it's cool.
I guess it's cool.
It's
Amongst
the same
college
guys who
students.
named
I
their
need to go play
restaurant
that. Yeah.
Chuck-a-rama, where you
Chuck-a-rama.
always think of puking at Chuck-a-rama.
I always call it up
Right.
Chuck your
Up-
grandma.
So moving
you ever seen
on,
the old people
we
there?
want to introduce Danny, extraordinaire actor, star
blah.
of several projects that we will discuss, Mr. Danny James.
Thank you,
Let's give it
Tom.
up for him. Please start clapping.
Thank you. I've got 3 claps.
Danny James. God bless you, Danny James.
I am blushing a little.
Welcome to the show. You've been here this whole time.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How did you get into acting, Danny James?
I don't know. No.
Next question. How did you get into acting, Danny James?
Yeah, do you want the real answer?
Yes, please.
Long story short as can be, I have always been interested in it, but, society tells us one thing that I didn't have anybody, I didn't have any mentors or anything like that growing up, kind of showing me the ropes, how to audition, what even an audition was. I didn't know what an audition was until I was in college. I knew things as tryouts, so I knew how to try out for the basketball team and football. So I did sports and things like that. And anyway, I ended up in college and got into some theater classes and et cetera, but I was more of a psychology major, and things went from there. Got
Which
out
isn't
of
bad to add to acting.
No, actually, it helps me
That
keep a
does
little bit
work.
more sane in my
Absolutely.
insanity. So
Well, I meant like analyzing people.
yeah, absolutely, with character development, things
Yeah.
like that, it helps
That
definitely.
frightens me a little.
What's that?
I said that frightens me a little.
A little. It frightens me a lot.
And
So if that
next-
helps any.
Next question. In your first audition that you thought was a tryout, did you bring a football?
No, but I brought myself though, and that's important.
That was not really a question. So, what else? What inspired you? What said I need to do this?
Well, it was this thing inside of me that just kept pushing me towards this business, this art. I kept trying different things, kept focusing on different things, and something kept pulling me back. And I finally did a play that I was convinced to audition for. It was Big River, and I ended up landing Huck Finn in that.
What age is this?
27. I was 27
Not too long ago.
not too long ago, and that kind of turned things for me a little bit. So I started doing more theater after that for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then I said, well, let's see about film and things like that and see where that takes me. And here I am.
Nice.
Awesome. What have you learned from your various acting endeavors? You got maybe one-ish big thing that you've learned.
Keep your pants on unless they're paying you a very large sum.
That works.
There you go.
That
There
works.
you go.
I'm with that.
That is what
Okay.
you've learned. Have you ever been put in that position?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay.
There you go.
Let me think.
No, answer the
Not
question.
entirely.
Not answering it makes people use
Not
their imagination,
entirely.
which would probably be worse.
Well, or is it? I mean, people need to use their imagination more often nowadays, don't they?
Oh, of course.
So use your imagination.
Using mine right now.
Next question. So talk about your horror projects you've been involved in, specifically Shadow Cabal and Zombies.
Yeah, Shadow Cabal, I guess you could call that horror. It's more fantasy.
Well, it is more fantasy,
You know,
that's
but
true.
there are monsters, orcs,
Sure,
things
sure.
like that, creatures in it and stuff like
For the
that.
Salty Horror Podcast, we're calling it horror. I'm sorry.
Well,
No, that
horror,
works.
sci-fi, fantasy,
It
it all
is,
kind
yeah.
of blends.
It is all kind of blends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But talk about Shadow Cabal,
the-
and you did do makeup for Shadow Cabal, but not for Zombie. Is that right?
It was the other way around.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
So talk about Shadow Cabal in regards to not doing makeup.
It's a lot easier when you don't have to sit in hours of makeup.
Explain to our fan base, our 37 people,
38.
why.
Well, you sit in 5 hours of makeup. I mean, for Zombie, I was only in makeup for about an hour and a half. It was pretty quick. But you sit in 5 hours of makeup, and you get tired. And you're tired when you show up because it's early, usually. And then you get done and you're tired because you've been in makeup for 5 hours, sitting there while people are playing with your face, holding your breath, closing your eyes.
So it's hard to get
you have
after all
itches
that.
all over your face you want to scratch and things like that, and you just can't do anything.
And heaven forbid you start sweating.
Right? Yeah, and if you start, it's difficult. So there's all these elements and factors coming in that are going against what you're trying to do. Makeup, I guess Shadow Cabal, I had a little bit of makeup, but it's dirt and things like that to make myself look dirty. In Zombie, I had to get a neck piece put on, had tendons in it and stuff like that because I get bit by a zombie on the neck and then it pulls out. And they ended up cutting that anyway. They used a different camera angle, so they didn't get all this stuff coming out. And it's unfortunate because Chris Hansen did the makeup on it. He did the special effects, and he's fantastic.
He is fantastic.
And so it was unfortunate that wasn't seen. But I have worked with him on some other things, and he's brilliant.
Chris Hansen is a huge. I call him. This is just Mario DeAngelis calling him this. Stan Winston of Utah. That's what I call him.
Well,
say that again.
He could Stan Winston of Utah. That's what I call him. And he can do anything.
That's
lot
a
of what he
bold
does.
statement.
No,
He
I'd
can
actually agree with him. Have you seen his stuff?
I do agree with you.
I've heard his name all
Stan
over the place,
Winston
but-
was more of masks and that kind of thing. But Stan Winston also stretched out into so many different areas, and that's what I think. I've seen Chris make turn a robotic back into something we could use as a cutaway in a video that we did last month.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I mean, it's like Chris Hansen can do
Chris Hansen
almost
is really
anything.
Out of
Oh,
Utah's
well, I think with the funding, he can do
range.
anything.
I absolutely agree with that. With the
Some things
funding,
cost
yeah.
money. Some things just cost money, period.
But even with that said, I mean, Chris's projects really stretch out. It's not just horror, but a lot of what he does is his specialty.
He dives into fantasy. I mean, he's worked with Guillermo del Toro on Hellboy 1 and 2.
Exactly.
He worked on Men in Black 1 and 2. I mean, he's...
And one of Utah, it's not necessarily a horror film. I understand that. I'm not going to be killed if I say this. But Frozen is a fantastic film, which has horror beats, but it was more of a drama. But he
Frozen,
did
is
such
that the
a
one where they
great
get
job
stuck
with
on
that
the
film.
on the
chairlift,
Yeah, the
yeah.
three
Absolutely.
It's kind of horror. I mean,
I think it's horror-y.
It's a horrible thing to happen to somebody.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and then there's so many great elements of Chris's work in that movie.
Oh, I didn't know
Frozen.
he did that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat.
Chris
Nice.
Hansen, his hands are stretched very far in the special visual effects makeup department, and he's done a lot of work. So his
I
horror
have seen
work
his
is
work.
really
Exactly.
renowned, I think.
And so working with him is fun. It's worth sitting in hours of makeup with somebody like Chris working
And
with
he's
you.
a sexy bitch.
Well, he's just fun.
He
Everything
has
that comes
good
out,
assistants.
he's got great assistants.
There
He
we
has
go.
great assistants,
Yeah,
and he's a sexy
and everything
bitch.
that comes out of his mouth is hilarious. So
And
he's just fun to be around.
He is a sexy bitch. With that,
Wow, Mario.
we will take a quick break, and we'll be back. Here's a little message from our sponsors we don't have. And thank you for listening to the Salty Horror Podcast. We'll be back.
Hey, wait. Eat some Thai food, and there we go. Solid Thai.
There's a pile of
there's
Thai
some
food
Thai
behind
food
me
for you.
that I
Someone
didn't
left
even
it
know.
behind.
So
for
thank you, and
I
we'll be
guess
back here at Salty Horror Podcast. There's more of Salty Horror Podcast, Episode 4.
We'll be back in a blink of an eye, actually.
Revenge of a Blink of an Eye. We'll be back.
Do you need horror all year long? Well, Salty Horror has your ticket to fill that need on the big screen. Salty Horror Productions and Broovies are teaming up to bring you free horror films the first Thursday of every month at 10 p.m. for your horror fix. April 5th will be the first Salty Horror Night featuring a locally made horror short and a feature you have been dying to see again. Every month will feature a classic horror film or horror films you may have seen at Salty Horror International Film Festival. Come for the fun, the drink, the food, and surprises the first Thursday of every month starting April 5th at Broovies. Go to www.broovies.com for more information on Salty Horror Nights.
Salty Horror Podcast number 4. Thank you for joining us. We are back. My name is Mario DeAngelis, the Festival Director of Salty Horror International Film Festival, and we are here with
Brandon Hobbs.
And
Tom Post.
And
Danny James.
And
James Morris.
Christian Morris.
all right, he's in the background. He's next to the Playboy pinball machine.
He's our cheerleader,
Lucky man.
Quit rubbing the machine, James.
And actually, he's grinding on the Playboy.
It's really
If
awkward.
you do really good on the
It's
pinball
kind of
machine,
awkward.
it
He's
does show
grinding on the
titties.
No way.
Yeah, it
pinball
does.
machine.
In digital?
So we
In
are.
pixels?
No, it is. In digital?
Okay, so we're still here with, I'm not sure what they're talking about, but we're back with Danny James is one of our guests here at Salty Horror Podcast, and we were having a nice little discussion that I interrupted about
all right.
being in horror. So we're gonna gear the rest of the conversation, the rest of your interview more towards horror.
Okay.
So
Let's do this.
Let's keep it on fucking track. Okay, Danny?
Let's try to do, I'll do my best.
Okay. So basically, and if I ask you what do you have going next, and there's something as soon as this weekend, talk about that. What are you doing this weekend, Danny James?
Oh, I am working on a short film with Brandon Hobbs here next to me, and Tom
that's
Post,
great.
and you, Mario
That's
DeAngelis.
interesting.
I mean,
Yeah, all four of us now. That's
yeah, and all I have are my sides to it, so I don't know how the ending
that's
ends
great.
or
And we'll
anything
keep
like
it
that,
like
which
that.
is kind of fun for me. It's not the first time that that's happened to me. I actually sometimes enjoy that. It keeps when the film comes out and I actually get to see it, I actually am surprised and get to watch it for the first time.
There you go.
In reality.
And you know what? There's actually a surprise ending that's not in the script at all.
Thank you, Shane.
That only the producers know about.
Right.
We
Oh,
kept it
really?
out of the script, and we're going to do it in post.
Wow.
So then all the actors and some of the crew is surprised on it.
That's
Yeah.
fun.
I've done that before. It works very well.
And I met Danny actually on Mario's short Between. I came as a PA to help out and ended up doing sound. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Danny James on the project, because I noticed that his acting was great. And then especially after watching the actual short, I was like, oh man, I need to get this guy on my first project.
Well, thank you, Brandon. You're very kind.
Yeah.
Actually,
And honest.
to Danny James and Tom Post, why does horror? What changes the game, if anything, in regards to horror? And Tom Post, you've directed a horror short for a local contest. And so to both of you individually, of course, don't talk at the same time or we'll fucking fire you from this podcast.
Ready, Tom? 1,
So
ready?
why
1,
is
2,
horror?
On
What is it about
3,
horror?
2.
It's everything is for
You-
me.
me
Horror,
and-
everything is
Stop fucking talking at the same time.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
everything is a caricature of real life. So everything has to be blown out of proportion to the extent that it actually terrifies. People that have never been shot don't know what it's actually like, and so they want to see the recoil of the gun and the body falling backwards. They want to see all of this overblown action. And so horror to me is more of an explosion of life,
That's a good way to put it.
or an explosion of the end of life. But
Right, sometimes.
yes, it's difficult, and I don't particularly care for horror because it gives me nightmares because I'm very
Who
weak.
invited you to this podcast?
And-
You don't care for horror.
And I have to.
Damn it.
I've written horror films. I've directed
know.
horror films. I've been in horror films.
I know.
One really bad horror film.
I know.
Which we will not speak of.
No, we won't.
And overall, I think horror is, what do they call it? Archetypical of the terrors of life that you experience when you're in your adolescence, when you have those nightmares that you can't wake up from.
That sounds good.
That makes perfect sense.
And everybody wants to recapture that sense of controlled terror. And so they go to these films where they're expecting to feel this almost a high of being terrified. The monster under the bed, the monster in the closet, the aliens on your roof waiting for the footsteps to come down. And so in horror films, especially when you direct them or act in them, everything is amped up a notch or 6 to achieve that effect.
That's a really good point.
It's your turn, Danny.
That's
fantastic. That is a great answer.
That is a great answer.
I love horror films. Let me rephrase that. I love horror genre.
Yeah, that's.
I am almost always disappointed with horror films, though.
Why?
Because I don't feel like they're upped up a notch compared to my dreams when I was a kid and stuff like that. I don't feel like they compare. I don't feel like they match up. And I haven't directed or written a horror film yet.
There you go.
However, there may be one or two in the works.
Oh.
Hey, can we reference things we were talking about earlier?
You can do whatever you would like.
Okay, because earlier you were talking about how people who write films or direct films, they add elements from their own lives.
It's true.
Into those. I think that horror films are especially true in that effect, is that the writers of horror films, take for example Stephen King. He insists that in every single one of his books there is one truth that actually happened to him. I think that a lot of horror film writers have that, where they're taking from their own experiences, whether, like you were saying, Brandon Hobbs, how you were saying that you had a ride home one night and it didn't end up badly, but it got you thinking about what
if it did
have happened.
Right.
And I think that a lot of horror writers take that, either they take a real experience or something that was very real to them, and they blow it out of proportion to this horror film.
Right.
Does that make sense, Mario?
Yeah, it makes
definitely.
perfect sense to me, because I recently also an opportunity that I've been given is in regards to Salty Horror. We had a sponsor called Angry Gnome Comics, and we still have them, but they kind of took
Angry Gnome?
Angry Gnome Comics,
Like Garden Gnome?
yeah, exactly. So there's a comic book company called Angry Gnome Comics, and I just kind of stumbled upon them for Salty Horror Year 1. And we kept in contact. We actually made one of their 2-page comics into a short film called Atonement. And it's actually a zombie short. It's my only zombie short, per se.
Zombies are the dry hump of the fictional world.
Thank you. We learned that earlier in the podcast. Fuck you, Tom Post. And so anyway, I made my zombie short Atonement based off of an Angry Gnome comic. Well, anyway, what happened was recently I was greenlit to write a 2-page comic for Angry Gnome Comics.
That's very cool.
And that was based off of, it's called Multiple Options. And that's based off of something that I think a lot of people go through. Brilliant. Where the comic is about a guy who's sitting at a stop sign thinking about multiple options of how he's going to kill his wife because he just found her screwing some other guy. So how many times have you gone through your head, what would you do if you just found out your
significant
other was just found screwing some other guy? You'd come up with multiple options in your fucking head of what you would do, and that's
or
what the comic is about.
what did you do?
I'm just kidding.
I have never killed anyone that I know of.
Or if your boss is screaming at you, you tune out and think of all the many ways you could just smash his head up.
Exactly.
Thank you.
know?
So
Yeah.
a lot of people have been through that, like multiple options. What would I do in this situation? So this comic that is going to be drawn by a comic book artist actually at Broadview. A Bo artist is going to draw it from a script I wrote.
Cool.
Garrick.
His name is
Garrick.
Garrick.
No way.
Is that a
his real
stage
name?
name? Or?
No, his first name's Garrick.
Interesting.
His last name is
Now back to on track.
Oh wait, on track. Sorry, horror
Where
films.
was the
Danny
track?
James.
I don't even know where the track
We went on track
was.
for Danny James's likeness.
I don't even
It
know
was
where we
your
were.
opinion of horror and why you're
Sorry,
talking.
Danny.
It's all kinda
Oh, I
related
was
since
just
we're
saying
talking
that
about
because I
horror.
knew we went on a tangent. I just
All
didn't.
right.
I knew we went on like
Just
12
start
tangents.
talking and shut up.
Next question. No, but basically why I went off book is because you write what you know, you write what you think about. Horror is in your life, exactly what everyone's talking about. So when you look at it, I was really on point, Danny James. So anyway,
I'm the one that
before
went
we
off
move on,
track.
Can I
as
ask
normal.
a question to Tom Post here? How did you get started in acting?
Ding, ding,
Ooh.
ding.
it's a good
We
question.
didn't touch base on that.
I've been pretending to be someone else since I was born.
Well, haven't we all? Everyone. On
Truly,
the
I
planet.
got started when I was 14 years old. I crashed an audition and got a part in a play called The Kingstad, which is an Italian commedia dell'arte, which is previous to Shakespeare. I stayed in theater. I went to school on a theater scholarship. I got kicked out of several schools on a theater scholarship. And theater got to take up too much of my time, so I went to film. That's pretty much it.
Theater takes up a lot of
Well, there
time
you go.
with little pay.
Theater, I love theater. I would
I
do
do
theater,
too.
but there's no money in it.
And your first
money in it.
time.
film production?
My very first film production
Yeah.
was, this is a great story. It was done in Arabic. It was called The Legend of Golf. It was a full feature, and none of it's in English. I filmed it entirely in English, and then they dubbed it in Arabic and released
nice.
it in wherever. I've never even
Is
seen
this
it.
true?
That's a very true
Are
story.
you lying?
No, not at
you've
all.
never
Tom
seen it.
Post actually doesn't lie,
Was
ladies
this,
and
a,
gentlemen.
was this a paying gig?
Yes, and what happened is I met a lady, and I won't mention her name, but she was an agent. She asked me to come audition. I forgot to tell you the TV angle, but I did a home improvement television show called The Helping Hand for Home Depot for about 6 years,
Oh, wow.
and that became, through its evolution, I was too fat, and so they cast Ty Pennington in my place, and it became,
You were a fat kid.
I was very large. I was around 240, 250.
Oh, wow.
So,
Which is
and
horrific.
it is horrific.
Looking at him now,
if
yes.
anyone knows
Yeah.
really what Tom Post looks like.
And I've seen him with his shirt
That's a
off.
big. That's a big
I
Tom
bet you
Post.
On
That is
a-
a big.
on
that's
set,
like-
not,
it's
not
like
big
extra-
top bedroom or
it's
anything.
like-
Tom
Extra
Tom started getting the money rolling in, and he let himself
I
go.
let it roll. No,
let it
and
roll.
so I was told I was too fat. I was let go. They hired Ty Pennington. That
Did
became
they actually
Trading
tell you
Spaces.
you're too fat?
Absolutely, they did.
They didn't sugarcoat it at all.
No, not at all. Not
Oh, they
even
don't in
a
television
tiny
at
bit.
all.
Those guys don't need to sugarcoat it, and they can't get sued for HR. And them and Disney.
No, but it's
can
just
tell you
mean.
Disney.
you're-
Oh, have I
you're
told
too
you the
thin.
Disney "You're too
Oh,
fat"
we know
story?
about the Disney stories. But
okay.
you know what?
There's
We need
mean
to-
things in
we
Let's
need
go back
talk
to
about
horror.
Yeah, that's
world.
true.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I got started, and I went from television. I went from theater to television to film, and I've tried to stay with film, but because I do live in Utah, it's fairly difficult. And I made
That's
a deal.
a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, and I made a deal with my wife a
As
couple
is
of years
Stephen
ago.
King.
I was in LA too much. I was gone about 5 months out of the year, and she convinced me to work in Utah. I gave it a year. That was 4 years ago, and I still hate Utah.
Are you from Utah?
Yeah, I am from Utah, and I'm sorry.
Danny,
It's a
are you from
love-hate
Utah?
relationship. You love
I am
Utah.
from Utah.
You wouldn't still live here. Okay, last question.
And
To,
like Tom,
uh,
I've lived in other places as well. But
Shut up, Danny.
I
'Cause you have a
end up back
310
here.
number.
Danny,
God.
Danny,
I have a
Damn it.
310.
soulless ginger.
I am a soulless ginger.
The last question to Danny. Actually, to Danny and Tom. And you did basically answer this, but if you could expand a little bit on what is your overall opinion of the horror genre as it stands? So we know that you like the horror genre, but you don't necessarily like all horror films. But where do you think the horror genre is going is the question to the panel.
No, I think it's actually developing into two different genres where you
Yeah.
have the
At least two.
okay,
At least two.
I'm gonna be broad.
Too
and say
general, very
it's
general.
developing into two genres where you have the true horror film, and I'm gonna say like Evil Dead. Let's categorize that as a true horror film.
Exactly.
And then on the opposite end of the scale, let's categorize Saw.
Okay.
Okay. and
Oh, you
that-
think it's
that's-
breaking up like that?
It's a gory. It
Yeah,
relies
the-
more on the physical aspects of horror rather than the psychological aspects of horror, where something is so fantastic or overblown, it's terrifying. And the Saw version it's so gross that's what's gross, that's what's terrifying, that's what's horrifying. So they're splitting into two different directions, where you've got the Hostel and the Saw.
Which is the Splat Pack.
Thank you.
Which,
Yes,
which pulls from the French horror films.
Right.
Okay, I would actually say the South Korean horror films.
Oh, that
where
makes
it got
sense too.
started.
Yeah.
The older South Korean films,
Yes.
not the newer.
Yes.
Because the newer ones are starting to go into more, psychological,
See, and they're
paranormal,
diverging
things like
and
that.
going more to the psychological aspects of horror.
And they're scary as shit.
Yes, they are. And never watch them alone, ever.
Which
Yeah.
is a nice segue, and we'll get back to you, Danny.
Oh,
James, but
Well, hold on.
Anyway.
Tom has not finished his thought process.
Well,
I,
know,
would
because
like
I'm
to hear it.
interrupting.
Anyway, my thought process is I think the horror genres, and I would call it a fantasy horror and physical horror. And
Good point.
I much prefer the fantasy horror, where it is more imaginative and it's
like a
it's
social
actually, and I hate to say
commentary
it,
to
yeah,
it.
it's more fun
Yeah.
than the physical horror, where you watch it and you go home and you think I can never unsee that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in my head forever now.
I
where-
can't see balls being fed to a dog. I can't unsee that
exactly.
ever again.
Exactly.
You know,
So,
it's never been
it's-
filmed.
And I
No,
think
it
it's,
has.
too.
No, I know, I'm
Hostile
kidding.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's just this divergence in social correctness that they're going overboard in, and that's just in my opinion. Some people may think it's mild, but I think they're going overboard in their exploitation of human destruction. And I much prefer the fantasy horror aspect of, like, Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
let's just bring that up. It
Brilliant.
wasn't really a horror film,
But-
it had some horror aspects to it.
There
Well,
were.
Here's
But
the
it is-
here's the
yeah.
brilliance of Guillermo del Toro is you take two of his films, okay, Pan's Labyrinth and The Orphanage.
Okay.
And Pan's Labyrinth is more completely fantasy.
Fantasy.
And The Orphanage is more of the physical side
Yes.
of things. Yet
He manages to keep that intellectual fantasy
Yes.
horror alive and he just throws in the splashes of the physical horror.
Yes.
Whereas the Saw films and the Hostel films, they rely entirely on the gimmick of
and nothing but.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
It's
if
like
you ask like a special effects makeup artist, they might go towards
Exactly.
the other direction. Yeah.
so that's my opinion on horror. Danny James, you're up.
No, I agree with you 100%, Tom. Two general genres. There are subgenres within those two. Many subgenres. I don't think we have time to get into them.
Well, it's interesting because we segue into your answers segue very nicely into the next topic, which is international horror, and we touched on this last podcast. But what's really interesting to me is the general sense of J horror or Japanese horror and how it's been remade into, like, you take The Grudge, you take The Ring, and how it's so different. The question is, why is international horror play different in other countries when it's changed over to American audiences? Why is it changed so much?
Because people don't want to read. That's why it's remade in America. People don't want to read subtitles, man.
Oh, but it's more than that. It's the laziness of the American population.
Thank you.
The
Yeah.
illiteracy of the American population, and the fact that the Japanese. I'm not going to go with the Japanese. I'm going to say with the South Korean horror films. Those
Yes.
guys get into this psychology of what is scary, what terrifies people,
Yeah.
and they
They-
exploit the
They
terror.
make people think. And
Exactly.
Brandon nailed it in one phrase. What Tom was saying is, what did you say?
What are you referring to? I said a lot.
no,
About the horror films.
Americans
say
don't
the
want to.
ex-
Americans are lazy. They don't
don't want
wanna
to
read.
read,
Yeah.
okay? Americans are lazy. They
That's why if you
don't
look
want to
at,
read. They want to sit back
and be fed,
and
spoon
be
fed.
Yeah, if you look at like
spoon-fed everything. You look
yeah.
at some of the dialogue in some of the big blockbuster films. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
There's some really,
Yeah, it's really
really horrible dialogue.
And not to bring
in
up
there.
Tom Cruise again, but how did he keep his straight face in Ghost Protocol and actually
Thank you,
say
Tom.
those lines?
Thank you,
I never
Tom.
saw it. I kinda
Thank
gave
you,
up
Tom.
On Tom Cruise. Yeah, like look at Let the Right One In and Let Me In.
Oh yeah,
Like they're almost exactly the same film. I mean, I like the remake. I thought it was great, but I mean, it's like the same thing.
Right.
And it was basically just translated because people don't want to read.
Exactly.
Have you-
People
okay,
don't want to read.
take for
Literally and figuratively.
figuratively.
Yeah.
They don't want to read.
And now, can I?
They don't
go-
wanna
it's
think.
slightly off topic. It's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Well, I was thinking the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah.
Okay,
Swedish
now let's
films.
talk about the American version where they rely on this physical, awful, horrible rape scene to push across the point. If you see the European version,
So much
they
better.
don't rely on that. They rely on the dialogue, they rely on the acting, and the acting in that is brilliant. The dialogue is fantastic. And we get this American version where we got one of the best actors around, Daniel Craig, and they force him into this position where everything relies on this visceral, gross, spoon-fed, this is bad, this is horrible, this is awful, and we're showing you why. But where if you look at the European version, they're like, all the dialogue, all the implication is still there, and it's actually a much, much better film.
It's like it makes you feel the same way.
Exactly.
But the American version is a little lazier with it instead of getting into
Because
it.
the
And in
American
some
public
cases,
is
much
lazy.
lazier.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
some cases, much lazier. And when it's not, they don't do as well in the U.S. When they're less when they're barely altered, they don't do as well. When they're extremely altered and lazied out
Yep.
to an extreme, they don't do as well in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
And if you look at the blockbuster hits in America as opposed to the blockbuster hits in, say, Norway,
right.
ours are the Avengers and these giant action epics. But the best film in Norway last year was one called Headhunters, which is this brilliant film. It's got the best twist at the end I've ever seen, and no one in America's ever even heard of it. It's on Netflix.
I haven't heard of it.
And
yeah.
but
And
it
I'm
is
horror
a
fan.
brilliant,
Didn't make any money here,
brilliant
but
film.
blew up there.
But in America, people won't watch it because they've got to read, they've got to think, they've got to say,
Yeah.
oh, wait.
And that's when the American public doesn't want to think. They want to go into a movie and be like, entertain me.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I don't want to think. And that's why a lot of Americans don't read books anymore.
That's why the top American, one of the favorite American Quentin Tarantino films is
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
Yes, exactly.
And Inglourious Bastards
Didn't do as well.
It
No,
did not
yeah.
do very well.
But
yes,
it's a
it
much,
won some
much better
Academy
film.
Awards
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but it didn't do very well box office wise and
Yeah.
things like that. But it's such a superior film, not acting wise, not things like that. But it's a superior film. The way it
Overall.
was shot, the way it was, the dialect, everything like overall, it was just a superior film.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., it did not do as well because people had to think during it more than in Pulp Fiction.
think and pay attention.
Yes.
You know?
And in
I
Pulp
think they
Fiction,
pay
they were able
attention,
to sit
exactly.
back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an elaborate, crazy ride, but it was a ride. Whereas in Inglourious Bastards, they had to think.
They've got to steer a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it here.
This is a little outside of horror, but today I just watched the Oscar-nominated short films of 2013 at the
I watched
Tower.
those as well.
What's that?
I watched those as well.
Weren't they great?
Yeah, they
I
really
loved
were.
all of them.
I
And,
did.
I think all but one was foreign,
Every single one was foreign.
except for the American one.
American director. Still not done locally. Does that make sense? But it was an American director, American cast.
Curfew.
Yes. Yes. So, and they're all wonderful.
Yeah.
They're all fantastic.
I loved all of them,
Did you watch them yet, Mario?
and they're beautifully done.
All the short films that are nominated for Academy Awards?
I haven't watched the short films that are nominated yet.
They're brilliant.
Where can we
all of
watch
them.
those?
Yeah.
Where can we watch those?
I watched them
Tower
on
Theater.
Amazon. Where did
At
you
the
watch them?
Tower.
Oh, I went and saw it
Amazon,
at Tower.
Tower Theater.
Tower Theater.
You can
9th
do
and
them on
9th.
Amazon Prime.
So Amazon Prime, Tower Theater, they're playing those short films that are Academy Award
And they're
winner
brilliant.
nominees.
They really are.
I believe
Academy
there's one from
nominated.
Yeah, nominated.
Yeah.
There's one
Yeah.
from BYU, I think, isn't there this year?
Oh, God, I hope not.
Not the nominated.
Not this year.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
I know what
It
you
must
think.
have been last year.
There are two
animated
guys from
ones and
BYU that are
documentaries.
nominated for sound
Do
for
some of
an
those
Academy Award in
shorts?
sound.
Do any of those shorts go into? Because I haven't seen them, and you guys have. But do any of those shorts go into darker themes?
Yeah, the first one.
Yes,
The,
absolutely.
the one from was it French?
I think it's French.
Oh, of course it's
Death
dark.
of a Shadow.
Of course
Yes.
it's French.
Yeah.
and it is brilliant.
That one is dark.
It
that
is
one is
like
on the darker side.
Yeah.
I fucking love
It
it.
hurt-
That would be probably my favorite.
My
out of
favorite.
all
it hurt
of
my
them.
brain a little
Yeah, yeah.
Now, why do you say that?
because I had to think.
Yeah, it makes you think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think, and it's not. It doesn't. It makes you actually use your brain, and you're watching it, and you're going, "Oh, wait a second, is that?" Oh, it's one of those the dawning at the end where you
Right.
go, "Oh, I get it." So they're all brilliant.
It's
but that one
dark and
especially.
it's beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm no spoilers. I'm not going to give it away. But the end is just so like selfless ending, and it just
really well done.
Gave me chills. I loved it throughout, and all the little like contraptions they have throughout it, I loved.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you very much for all of that. You guys are fantastic.
And we could go on and on about this
Of
subject.
Of course.
All night.
So now we move on to, and we are going to put you guys to the test.
Oh.
All right. First, I'm going to ask Brandon, and then I'm going
That's
to
really
ask you guys
not-
the same question. All right. So I'm going to ask Brandon for his horror DVD pick of the month. All right. And we're
Now
gonna
it doesn't
go
have to come out this
Yeah,
month.
does that have
right?
to come out this month? Or?
No. It doesn't necessarily. We can make up the rules, man. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Whatever, man. I don't fucking
You know,
care.
I gotta keep track of the ones that I picked previous, because I don't know if I said Killer Joe.
No, you have not. I already know. You have not picked Killer Joe.
I'm not gonna pick it this time either.
Oh,
I
well, there
really
you
love
go.
that movie.
And I still haven't seen
But
it.
I'm only picking this one because my
for it.
friend got it for me for Christmas, and I've just been watching the hell out of it, and it's Full Moon Entertainment's Puppet Master collection, man.
Oh,
And
I have heard about this
it's just because
collection.
it's nostalgic to me. It has the first 9 Puppet Masters, or
Right.
all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. They're goofy, they're fun, they're not
It's-
that well done, but
It's interesting because they're horror, but they're also like
miniature
reach-
creature features.
Yeah, they reach this level of craziness. It's
Yeah.
like it's when they used to do stop motion animation. And
Yeah,
I
and
have
I
no
really
idea
love stop motion,
if
man.
all the Puppet Masters eventually just went digital, or can you tell me about that?
You know what? I would watch them as a kid, and I think I got up to 3 when I was a kid, and then didn't watch any. And I'm up to 3 right now.
Oh, okay.
So as of 3, it's still stop motion.
I think I hear a Puppet Master
Marathon coming on.
marathon, possibly for Salty Horror.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
possibly,
And I have
yeah.
all of them.
That might
And
be
they
a
just
decent
came out with
idea.
part 10
Oh my
recently.
Christ.
Full Moon.
Masters?
Yeah. And
I
Full
have a
Moon
lot to
is
say-
and Full Moon's coming back.
Yeah, I have
They
a lot to say
disappeared
about
for a
Full
while.
Moon. Yeah, they went dark.
Yeah.
Now all
and-
they need to do is make one with the leprechaun and.
You ever
Oh,
seen,
speaking
they
of the
do-
leprechaun,
have you ever seen the movie
yeah.
Shadow Puppets?
All right, you guys are freaking me out.
Okay.
So now we're moving on to Mario's DVD pick of the month. And my DVD pick of the month is called Excision. Excision. It's a fantastic film. Now, it's kind of interesting because this film crosses a couple genres, okay? So it's drama meets horror. There's some sequences that will fuck you up, man. And it's like literal dream sequences for the main character. Main character is played by an actress. Her name is Annalyn McCord, who is beautiful. But in the movie, she's not beautiful. Her character in real life is not beautiful. Then she goes into her dream world and she's hot. She's sexy. There's like sex scenes with blood, and
And
it's
you relate
crazy.
to this how?
Yes,
It's-
of course. Because when I
very,
go,
like,
when I dream,
I was wondering.
I'm ripped. I got like a
Nightmarish,
10-pack.
like Dario Gento.
look
like
me.
Kinda.
Yeah, really like almost the Cell type dream sequences,
Oh, yeah.
shot really,
that movie.
really sterile and colorful. But she goes back to her real life, and it's really drab and lit really flat, and there's a lot of scenes at the dinner table, and it's really locked down. But the dream sequences are just fucking crazy. But Excision it's a great little film. And it's a first feature for the director who did that film, based on his short film. So anyone who still tells you, now I know shorts don't make money, I get it, but this guy made a short film in
But they-
2008. He made a feature called Excision, based on his short film 4 years later. If you fucking stick to your guns, anything can happen.
I don't know. If
I
you're-
know
if
short
you're-
films can't really make much
If
money.
you're a real
But-
artist, then who gives a goddamn if it's
Huge
making
short
money,
films
man?
can
You
make
just gotta-
money.
Right. But then
I mean-
again, yes.
I mean, to me, man, I'm making this short because I feel like if I don't make movies, I'm gonna fucking die.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And that's how you should look at it. Because
I know
if you
what
look
you
at it
mean.
I
as
agree.
like, I need to make money off of this. What's the new craze? I need to
Exactly.
find it. Then you're gonna make shit. And Hollywood is proving that every fucking day.
They're gonna make shit and they're gonna reap the rewards. They're gonna make money off of it.
Yeah.
And I personally want to segue into more features, but I won't stop doing shorts. A good friend of mine, Jason Velasco, it almost makes fun of me sometimes because I think in shorts. And he loves the short film. He knows what the reasons for.
Well, you know what I'm doing, which I've told you before,
Yes.
but what I'm doing with my short is I want to make another short, and then another short, and another short, and another short, obviously. Put them all together as do a wraparound
Exactly.
and have anthology.
There
Kind
you
of
go.
like that. Oh man, j'ai tout amour. The French.
Yep.
The French j'ai tout amour or something like
J'ai
that.
tout amour.
Yes.
J'ai tout amour. Is
Yes.
that what it's called?
Yes.
It's a compilation of a bunch of shorts.
Yes.
Done by. I mean, you're doing it as you, the director or writer or both. They did it as several different directors. But that's
like
what it is.
DeAngelis did, and there's
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, I have it. I'll loan it to you.
Oh, I'd love to
So
see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
We'll
definitely
loan it
let
to
you
all
watch
of you.
that. It's fantastic.
All 38 of you.
Everybody who's listening
Danny
to this
James
podcast.
is going to
J'ai tout amour. There's a
Just
fun
give
one.
us your address and I'll send it to you. But you
yeah,
gotta send it back.
exactly. Where you have to send it back so we can send it to the next person.
But I want all of them to kind of intertwine and do a wrap around, and you know,
Awesome.
yeah.
Related.
It's
So it
it's
kind of
really
creates a
a
feature.
cheap way of doing a feature because features really intimidate me, especially just embarking
They're
on this
scary.
first short. You know, a lot of work went into it, but yeah, that's my way of making a feature. Then next, I have a feature in mind that I've been writing since I was 19.
Awesome.
And I'm 29 now, and it's not horror.
That's okay.
But, yeah.
I've been watching a bunch of horror films from the 60s and 70s and a
nice.
couple from the early 80s. Early, like 1980 and 81.
Ooh, 81 was like the explosion of slasher films.
Yeah, that's when the slasher films came in, and like werewolves and vampires and things like that started to really. I mean, vampires were in the 70s too.
Vampires do
Yeah,
not
with like
twinkle.
Hammer films. and
Yeah,
Christopher Lee.
vampires do not twinkle.
Thank you, Danny James.
You know,
Yeah.
but they're these old like B movie horror films that I've been watching, and it's really fun.
What's your favorite?
Like Night of Terror. You can buy them at Walmart
Yeah.
for like $5. Night of Terror, and there's another horror thing. I've been going through those, and some of them are god awful. I mean, they are
course.
like some of
Yeah.
the worst things on the planet I've ever seen. I'm like, how did these things get funded and made?
And which can be inspiring
And
in
what were
different
they
ways,
on, and things like that. And then others were brilliant with the same mindset. What were they on? What were they thinking? All this kind of
Who
stuff.
funded this? That's what I'm asking.
But I'm gonna say newer releases. I've watched 2 newer releases other than those. And of the new releases, Paranormal Activity 4 and The Possession.
I
And-
did not see either of those.
Paranormal Activity 4, 3 is better. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, you know they're greenlit Paranormal Activity 5.
I hope
Of
it's
course,
better than
they're
4.
just going to keep doing them as
just
long as they're
gonna
making
keep
money.
making
Yeah.
them.
4 did not catch my attention at all.
It didn't have a leprechaun.
It didn't have a leprechaun. It didn't have moving cameras. 3
Were there
did
lesbians?
it because of the moving cameras. That was the
Lesbian
biggest thing.
leprechauns.
1 was the best one. Paranormal Activities 1 is
I
the
agree.
best one.
Yeah.
Agreed.
3 was the second best one because of the moving cameras. It kept you on edge.
2
those
was
moving
quite
cameras.
horrible, man. Like, I
2
remember, like, what's going on?
I don't even want to
They-
talk about 2.
Let's not.
And 4, about the same thing, slightly better than 2, maybe.
Oh, man.
The Possession was actually pretty good for the most part. So that is my horror pick for the month is The Possession.
We actually got a bonus. We got 2 DVD picks from Danny James.
Yeah, there you go.
No, you didn't.
Not
You
really.
got one
No,
that
I
you
said
shut down.
don't.
I'm sorry. Good point.
So the possession is what you...
The Possession.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, final answer?
The Possession.
Final
All right.
answer.
Final
Okay,
answer.
Okay. Final
Hands
answer.
down, no questions asked.
No, but that's a pretty good eclectic selection of DVDs people can go watch.
Yeah.
So we are very happy to have everyone here at the Salty Horror Podcast, episode 4. And we want to thank everyone for everything.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I do want to throw a little shout out to Valentine's Day. So
Happy Valentine's Day.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, first of
Come
all,
on.
okay, here we go. Fine, you want
Unless
me to
it's,
get a little?
are you
pussy
gonna
about it? It's my
show
least
Bloody
favorite-
Valentine? Are you
No,
gonna
okay.
show Bloody Valentine?
First of all,
I've never
it's my
seen it, but are you
least
gonna show
favorite
it?
Fucking holiday ever.
Why is that?
Okay,
You
first
don't look
of all,
good in a
for-
tutu
it's-
with a
it's
bow
the
and arrow?
most
Well,
Hallmarky holiday. It
Hallmarky.
doesn't really exist.
It
Does
was
anyone
created
even
by
remember St.
Hallmark.
Valentine?
It
No.
was created
So,
by Hallmark.
Fuck you, because I'm Catholic and everyone
Yep,
should remember
Hallmark.
St. Valentine.
Me and St. Valentine are actually on intimate terms.
That's not true. You fucking liar. Okay, so that's the thing.
That
Is
was
that
a lie.
Valentine's Day has nothing to do with Saint Valentine,
Yeah.
who is a Catholic saint who's cool. Saint Valentine was cool. See, you motherfuckers don't even know who I'm talking about.
Well, Saint Valentine was cool.
Look, I don't know.
But
Are
the
you-
holiday, I mean, come on.
Are you Catholic?
Of fucking course I am. Well, I'm barely Catholic.
All right, then.
Okay,
Shut
now,
up.
so, yeah.
Like a good 80% of Catholics.
I've
barely.
never
My mother
celebrated
is not going to hear this.
Valentine's Day.
So-
She's listening. She's number 32.
She's number 32. 32?
32, I'm sure.
32.
No, wait, you're Catholic? She's number 33.
So anywho,
And I know why.
It's a horrible holiday, and so, but
Or is
My
she
Bloody
12?
Valentine
33.
is a horribly
33.
beautiful film, and then they went and ruined it with the remake. That's my
And you
stance.
showed it anyway.
Wait, before
You
we...
know why we showed it, Mr. Brandon Hobbs? What we did was we polled
Yeah.
the Salty Horror fans. All right, and what we said was, which one do you want to see more? And there was almost a tie. It was very close. So we said, fuck it, we'll show the original
'Kay.
and the 3D remake.
I'm grateful for fans and everything like that, but they are fans in the United States.
Yeah, you shouldn't even put
And when
that
they're
on the
fans
list,
in the
remake.
United States, it
in
means
the International Film Festival, Mario,
you are
international.
the international film
Salty
festival.
Horror
So you should-
International.
You should represent. You should represent people outside of the United States,
what does
which
that mean?
which
Get
are
those
gonna
South
like
Koreans
the
involved and
original
scare the hell out of yourself.
more than the new version, which is dumbed down.
So everyone's saying I made a mistake.
No, you never
Even
mentioned. Yes,
even
we are.
You shouldn't
the
have given him a choice.
even the fans
you're-
of the United States that watched it
And I
are
think-
saying,
I think
"Wait,
this
why
is-
did I
Month
pick
on
that
month.
one? I should have picked the other one." You know what? People half the time, in fact, more than that. It's like 80 to 90% of the time.
90% of the time, 10% of the people, or
They
80% of the
pick
time are going to do.
wrong. They pick the wrong choice.
Yeah, Mario, basically in a
I don't even
nutshell,
know what you, I feel like I'm on crazy.
When they're
Here,
given
here,
a
here.
decision,
Mario,
pick
in a-
this food
in a
or
nut-
this food, they pick the wrong food.
in a
80%
nutshell,
of
Mario,
the time.
don't give him a choice. Tell him what they should
I
watch.
like that.
Okay,
That-
fine.
if they're
I'm
Americans.
not gonna delegate
Next time say,
anymore.
"Hey,
I'm
man,
gonna
just
say,
tell
"This
it
is
is."
what we're fucking doing."
Spoon
Yeah.
feed it to him.
Because
Haven't you
remember,
learned anything
this
tonight?
is your event. This is your event. This is
I
your
am-
event,
I am
and
energized.
this is your way of saying, "Hey, man, here's a good piece of cinema. Watch this."
People
I am
don't like
energized
making
now.
decisions in
Not
the United
like-
States,
not
and
hate.
when we
Next
do,
month
we pick
we're-
the wrong choice.
Next month we're not giving any fucking choices.
Nope.
We're showing Leprechaun.
Step up and be
I think
a
you need to
tyrant.
scratch
They will
Leprechaun
pick Leprechaun in
altogether.
space, and that is the wrong choice.
Leprechaun 4 in space is.
Anything
wrong
with an
choice.
Irish leprechaun is the wrong choice. Anything.
Don't give him a choice.
It is March. They're trying to go with St. Patty's Day. There's got to be a better St.
Mario
Patty's
knows
Day
St. Patrick
horror
personally.
movie.
He's Catholic.
Better.
That's right.
There's
I'm
got to be a
Catholic. I know
better
every
horror
saint.
film of St. Patty's Day than Leprechaun.
We're
There
gonna
has
watch
to be.
What was
Boondock
Black-
Saints.
What was Black Sheep? Was
Gremlins.
that
Gremlins.
Irish or was that
Black
Scottish?
Sheep had nothing to
Black
do-
Sheep.
It is New Zealand.
What about New
Gremlins?
Zealand?
Sheep
No,
has
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
to do
yeah,
with
yeah.
Gremlins?
Holiday.
No.
Gremlins,
Gremlins.
Goonies.
Gremlins is a fucking Christmas movie. What the fuck?
No, that's no. That's
kidding,
that's
man.
how we learned how Santa Claus wasn't real. Was
Right.
Gremlins.
Yes.
It's not a
Which
Christmas
is a
movie.
leprechaun. Santa Claus is really a leprechaun, not an elf.
I feel like I'm going insane.
All right.
What are you talking about, Daddy James?
Let's wrap
All
this
right,
up.
I think we are wrapping this up real quick. So thank you very much to Broovies. Thank you to Tom Post, Danny James, Brandon Hobbs, and I am Mario DeAngelis here at the Salty Horror Podcast.
You're
If
welcome.
we have any listeners left, thank you for listening. We'll be back next month probably.
18, 19, and
Cost
20.
us-
Thank you.
As long as they're not down to zero.
It doesn't cost us shit to do this, so we're just gonna keep making podcasts.
Whether you like it
So,
or not.
Look, whether you like it
Thanks
or
for
not.
listening if you did.
Thanks for listening.
And if you did, pass it on. We want to make 1,000.
Remember.
Oh yeah, 1,000 listeners.
1,000 listeners.
Facebook likes.
1,000 listeners.
No,
1,000
1,000
Facebook
Facebook
Yes,
likes.
yes.
We want more than 1,000
And
listeners.
something really cool is gonna happen once we hit 1,000.
Watch indie horror movies and watch international horror movies.
Yes.
And listen
your brain.
to the Salty Horror Podcast.
Yay! Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you, and good night.
Time to pee.